Ahoy everybody, and welcome to another album review, and this time Discogs randomly picked the Scream compilation by Michael Jackson. Unfortunately, when I was trying to save space on my old phone, I accidentally deleted the video showing it being randomly selected, so you'll just have to believe me, but let's face it, I would never have just picked this album to review, being a compilation. So, and I've no reason to lie anyway, but yes, it picked this album, Scream by Michael Jackson. I'm recording this outside, bright sunshine. It's looking very dark on my screen. I hope that's just the reflection and that it looks okay for you. If not, I'll see what I can do in post. But yes, so Scream. This is compilation released in 2017, and it has a very loose Halloween theme. Just realised I've put that top bit in the wrong way round. Yes, very loose Halloween theme. A lot of the songs, their titles might towards that sort of theme, but the songs are actually nothing about anything connected. So yes, it comes with a little, it's not really an OB because it's just a little card on there with the track listing. And it's a nice release. I picked this up partly because it was unusual. So it's double vinyl and it's glow-in-the-dark vinyl. So the first album is just a pure glow-in-the-dark vinyl. I've never managed to get the glow-in-the-dark to work properly, I'll be honest. And then the second disc is this blue with glow-in-the-dark specs, which does work a little bit better, I found. Probably because there's not so much glow-in-the-dark bit trying to absorb the light. I seem to recall that little section's glow-in-the-dark as well. I mean, it did have a Shazam interactive bit. You loaded Shazam, took a picture of a little code with your camera, and then pointed it at that, and it started playing tracks, and it had animated crows all over it and everything. That no longer works because Shazam no longer has the camera's bit of its app. I tried to do it yesterday to record for you, and it doesn't work anymore. But yeah, and it comes in a plastic sleeve. With the moon and the crows on the back, and MJ's eyes, etc. on the front. Oh, and I always leave that bit out. So yeah, we'll go through track by track. I'll tell you about each track and rate it out of 10, and then we'll give it an overall percentage. So track 1 is This Place Hotel, which was originally known as Heartbreak Hotel, but they changed the name to avoid confusion with the Lieber and Stoller song made famous by Elvis Presley. Michael Jackson claims he'd never heard of Heartbreak Hotel when he wrote the track. He also claimed in Moonwalk, his autobiography, Moonwalk, no, is it Moonwalker or Moonwalk autobiography? Anyway, that book. But he'd never listened to any Elvis Presley then, but he acknowledged his influence on music, which I find very hard to believe. Anyway, it was released in 1980 on the Jacksons' album Triumph. It's written by Michael Jackson, sung by Michael Jackson. The only other input from the rest of the Jacksons is percussion and a guitar solo by Tito, I think it is. It's minimal involvement by the Jacksons, even though it is a Jackson song. Yes, theme of the song, Jackson takes a girl to his hotel for a romantic evening, but it's this weird special hotel where they set about breaking up couples. So they go there, and as they go into the room, there's these two girls waiting for him, saying, "Oh, this is where you told us to meet." And during the song, basically his girlfriend dumps him. Musically, it's got a slow string intro, and then it goes into a fairly slow disco beat. Strings staying throughout the song in the background. It sort of sounds like a typical Michael Jackson or Jackson's track from that era. It's decent, but it's nothing special, although it does end with a nice piano coda. Yeah, it's not a wow track. It's a track he obviously liked. He played it live on both the Thriller and Bad tour. But yeah, I think it was those two anyway. It was either that or Bad and the Dangerous tour, but he definitely played it live a lot longer. Hello Butterfly. But yeah, it's a decent track, but it's nothing outstanding. I've given it 7.5 out of 10. Track 2 is Thriller from 1983, title track of a Thriller album written by Rod Temperton. You all know Thriller. Horror themed funk song about being terrorised by monsters. Great production to the track with the added sound effects, the funky guitar riff, the bass line, the Vincent Price spoken section and his laugh that ends it all. A classic track. I don't need to tell you about Thriller by Michael Jackson. It's a 10 out of 10. Track 3 is Blood on the Dance Floor from 1997. It was originally recorded for 1991's Dangerous album, but it wasn't used. It was co-written with Teddy Riley, and they sort of dusted it off for Blood on the Dance Floor without Teddy Riley's involvement, and had a bit of extra percussion and instrumentation added to it, and it was released as the title track to the Blood on the Dance Floor album, as I say, in 1997. It's a song about a woman named Susie who seduces Jackson and then tries to, or does, stab him on a dance floor with a knife. Hence the title, basically. It's a funky New Jack Swing type track, sort of pounding drums. We're now getting to the stage where Jackson's vocals were very percussive. He was doing all the, the yelps and the hee-hees and, all the shamans and all, that sort of stuff. The stereotypical Michael Jackson sounds. It's also got more of a growl to his voice on this track, which sort of fits the theme to it very well. It's a good, solid, catchy track. It's one I've always liked, and I've given it 8 out of 10. Track 4 is Somebody's Watching Me from 1984, which is a track by Rockwell. Now, Rockwell was Berry Gordy's son, although he was estranged from Berry Gordy at the time. But Michael Jackson sings the chorus on this, and Jermaine Jackson does some backing vocals on the verses, hence its inclusion here. The theme of the song, very much obviously described by the title. I'm sure you're all familiar with this song. It's a well-played song on radio, even to this day, but it's a paranoia that he's being watched. It's a fun, catchy track. Rockwell's vocals are, let's say, distinctive. What I mean is he's not a very good singer, but the whole song is sort of saved by the chorus and Jackson singing on that. It's a good, as I say, it's a good, fun, catchy song. I've given it 8 out of 10. Then we have track 5, which is Dirty Diana from Bad, 1987, released as a single in 88. It was the 5th single from Bad, and this is a track written solely by Michael Jackson. It's one of his more rockier tracks. As I say, it was a single, so I expect most of you are familiar with it. It's sort of the Bad album's Beat It, the rockier pop track. It starts with the sound of an audience as if it's being played live, although of course it isn't, it's a studio track. Distinctive catchy guitar throughout the track by Steve Stevens, who at the time is probably best known for his work with Billy Idol. It's a song about groupies. Diana is a groupie. There was some talk that maybe it was about Diana Ross, which Jackson denied, although Diana Ross loved the track and used it as a pre-encore bit of music on her tour. Some people said it was about Princess Di, which again Jackson denied, although Princess Di did say it was her favourite track of his when she met him, apparently. But yeah, it's got strong, heartfelt vocals, excellent production, nice addition of strings going on in the background. I'm a sucker for strings. I've mentioned this many times. Always been a favourite track of mine. Bought it when it came out in 1988 on single. It's a 10 out of 10 for me. Track 6 is Torture from 1984. This is another Jackson's track. It's written by Jackie Jackson and Kathy Wakefield, with vocals by Michael and Jermaine Jackson. Originally Jackie was going to do the vocals with Michael because they didn't think Jermaine was going to be on the album, but then he rejoined the band around this period, so he was added instead. It's a song about the torture a person can feel during a breakup. You know, when if they're still in love with the other person, but the other person is breaking up the relationship, that sort of torture. So it doesn't really fit into the theme. All the tracks prior to this probably did. Dirty Diana is sort of a stalkerish nature of a groupie, so there is sort of a horror thriller type element to that. But no, Torture, apart from the title, doesn't really fit the theme. It's a fairly simple synth pop song. I'd say it's from 1984, but it sounds dated for a 1984 track. It sounds more like sort of a second-rate disco-y pop track from about 1980. It hasn't really got a 1984 type sound, if that makes sense. Nothing to write home about. I've given it 6 out of 10. Track 7 is Leave Me Alone from 1987 from a Bad album. So this is a Michael Jackson track, and originally it was only on the CD of Bad. Then a few years later it was added to the cassette, and I think it's now on the vinyl reissues. I might be wrong there, but it was released as the 8th single from Bad. It's a response to all the negative press about him, all the made-up stories in the press, you know, the sleeping in the oxygen booth and wanting to buy the Elephant Man's skeleton and stuff like that. Excellent video, well worth checking out. It's a funky song based on... So I've got wind blowing my notes now. The wind is nice, it's getting in my way. Yes, funky song based on guitar and synths with a pounding drum beat. Excellent vocals. You can tell he really, heartfelt vocals. It's probably my favourite Michael Jackson track. If I'm honest, it's an obvious 10 out of 10. Does it really fit the theme of the album? Possibly not really. It's about press intrusion. It's not really horror related. It's just, again, the title, Leave Me Alone, as vaguely Halloween-y. And the same really can be said about pretty much all but one of the rest of the tracks. Track 8 is Scream from 1995, so the song that gave the album its name. It's a duet with Janet Jackson, written by the pair of them with Jam and Lewis, who worked with Janet a lot. It was on the History Part 1 album, or was it Part 2? Which one? The part of History that's new songs as opposed to greatest hits anyway. It's a very angry track responding to the child sex abuse allegations made against Michael and the coverage of them in the media. Snarled, angry vocals, especially by Michael, but also by Janet to an extent. Production-wise, it is very Flight Time, which is Jam and Lewis's production company name. It sort of takes what they learned from working with Prince. They were originally in the Time with Prince's band, and they sort of learned, if you like, his multi-layered instrumentation that he uses on most of his songs, and they then took that into their own production technique, and it's very much one of those sort of songs with lots and lots of instruments layered over each other. There's a breakdown section near the end followed by a guitar solo that I really like, and I've always just loved this track. I think you can tell how heartfelt it was. and it's another 10 out of 10 for me. Track 9 is Dangerous from 1991, the title track from that album. It was originally going to be I think it was the 9th or 10th single from the album, but because of the child sex abuse allegations, and the toll that was taken on Jackson, the release was scrapped, so it was never released as a single, although it did chart after his death. Co-written with Bill Bottrell and Teddy Riley, and it's very much the New Jack Swing type song. As you know, from that era onwards, pretty much all of Michael's solo work was. Most of it is Jackson rapping, talking over a clanging drum beat about a dangerous girl. Has got a sung pre-chorus and chorus. It's quite catchy, but it's never been a song I love, and it goes on far too long. It's just shy of 7 minutes long, and it sort of says everything it needs to say after about 3 or 4 minutes. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Track 10 is Unbreakable from 2001. This is from the Invincible album, and it's written with Rodney Jenkins and others, and it features a rap by the Notorious B.I.G. It's got a catchy synth line which dominates, and there's again just this sharp drum beat throughout. Typical late period vocals. Yet again, it's about his media treatment and how it won't defeat him. He's unbreakable, blah de blah de blah. I don't really like much Jackson after the History album. It's not my sort of music, basically. It's an average track. It goes on too long again. It's another 6 out of 10. Track 11 is Escape. That's how it's spelled, X-S-C-A-P-E. It's a title track of the second posthumous album, originally recorded in 1999 for the Invincible album, but it wasn't used. It's got the same writers as Unbreakable, apart from a couple less, but the main bulk of the writers. And of course it hasn't got Notorious B.I.G's writing credits because he's not on it. Again, similar theme, although added reference to technology behind, people following him and him trying to get away from the media, hence Escape. Because it wasn't used and was then revamped for this posthumous album released in 2014, it's had a modern or a more modern production sheen added to it, which takes away a bit of a New Jack Swing same oldness from it, but it's still not a great track. I've given it 7 out of 10. Track 12 is Threatened. This from 2001. It's from the Invincible album again. Same writers as the last couple of tracks. It's basically a New Jack Swing update of the themes of Thriller. This is sort of the only track in this last... Well, no, that's a lie, the next one does as well. But after a few tracks that don't really fit the theme of the album, we're back on track. It's a song about a monster, basically. I did feel, given all the allegations and everything about him singing a song about hiding in somebody's closet and being a monster wasn't possibly the most sensible thing to be singing about, but there you go. Yet again, sounds the same as all the other songs from this era. Pounding drums, synth lines over the top, samples on top. Wasn't a fan of this track. Another 6 out of 10. Track 13 is Ghosts from 1997. So this was written with Teddy Riley, and it's the sort of theme song for his short film of the same name. And then the single was, or the track was added to the Blood on the Dance Floor album in 1997. It opens with some ethereal choir vocals before a frantic New Jack Swing backing comes in. I'm trying to read my own writing there. Yeah, before a frantic New Jack Swing back in, you know, pounding drums, synth lines on top, etc. It's about a backstabbing woman, but it could also be about negative press. So, you know, again, it's more the title really, Ghosts, that makes it suitable for his compilation. It's, you know, not really about ghosts as such. The verses are average, but I like the pre-chorus and the chorus on it. They're catchy and memorable, and as such I've given it 8 out of 10. And then the album ends with Blood on the Dance Floor X Dangerous brackets the White Panda mashup, which was a new mashup recorded for this album. So it's a mashup by White Panda of Blood on the Dance Floor, Dangerous, This Place Hotel, Leave Me Alone, and Is It Scary, which of course doesn't feature elsewhere on the album and really should have been on the album. It fits the theme more than a lot of tracks that were on there, and it's a better track than quite a few other tracks that were on there. It's very well done, and I enjoyed it. You know, it works as a good mashup. It doesn't... Maybe Leave Me Alone doesn't quite fit into it as well as the other tracks, but a lot of the tracks just blend seamlessly. But at the end of the day, the only reason it's on the album is so that they could say that there is a new track on the album to persuade people to buy it. It doesn't really need to be on there. But, you know, that's not what I'm basing the score on. I'm basing the score on the track, and I've given it 8 out of 10. So overall, it scored 110.5 out of 140, which is 71.8%. It suffers by too many later era Jackson. As I say, personally, I sort of off the wall through to bad, wonderful. Dangerous is mixed, and you know, the track from it that's on here is one of my least favourite tracks from that album. I loved History, personally. Blood on the Dance Floor I like a fair bit, but anything after that I have very little time for. So it suffered through that. By being a themed compilation, of course, they were restricted to what they could put on it, so there's only 2 or 3 of the massive songs. You know, Thriller's the only real big song, and then you sort of got Dirty Diana and Leave Me Alone, and Blood on the Dance Floor was a number 1 in the UK. Other than that, and Scream. You know, and then the addition of the 2 Jackson's tracks and the Rockwell track are interesting and give it a bit of variety, but certainly the 2 Jackson's tracks aren't their strongest material. Yeah, it's, you know, a failed experiment, I think, as a themed compilation, but it's an interesting listen, and, you know, none of it's terrible. It's just, you know, chunks of it aren't to my taste. But yes, that's Blood on the Dance Floor by Michael Jackson. Let's see. No, it's not. It's Scream by Michael Jackson. 71.8%. So we'll see what randomly gets chosen next, and I'll see you in another video. Thanks for watching.